So you will all have heard the news about the state of UP footing the income tax bill for the salaries of all their ministers, deputy ministers, ministers of state, even the chief minister since 1981. Well, it's not just the state of Uttar Pradesh, it's actually 5 other states also who do the same thing. So this is something which the Quint has found in an exclusive investigation by analyzing the laws of a number of other states. So what we found is that in the states of Uttarakhand, Haryana, Himachal Pradesh, Punjab and Jammu and Kashmir, and this applies even after the reorganization, you, the public, are technically footing the bill for the income tax paid by ministers and sometimes certain other functionaries on their salaries when it comes to that. So what exactly do we have, and since when has this been going on in these places? So Uttarakhand, of course, used to be part of Uttar Pradesh, so they were already covered under the law which was existing in UP since 1981. But after Uttarakhand became a state, that continued even though they didn't have a separate law, and in 2010 they enacted a separate law to do the same thing. So for the people of Uttarakhand, you've been again footing that bill since 1981. If you're looking at the state of Haryana, they started this back in 1970. So actually, in fact, well before most of these other states, because back in 1970 itself, they passed a law which said that the salaries of all the ministers would be covered, the income tax which is payable on these salaries and allowances which are given to them as part of that will be footed by the common people. And in fact, in Haryana, it's not just the sort of official salary as a minister. It's also any salary they earn as an MLA, which is an additional thing, which is not the case in other states. So in other states, if they're getting a salary or allowance as a minister, salary or allowance as a legislative assembly member, they aren't combined and the exemption applied to them. In Haryana, however, that's what happens. In Himachal Pradesh, this has been happening since 1971, when all ministers and deputy ministers' salaries and allowances, the income tax payable on those, payable by the public exchequer. In 2000, they repealed those old laws and they now no longer pay the income tax for deputy ministers, but they are still doing it and the public is still having to pay for the income tax of ministers. In Punjab, they've had laws about the salaries and allowances for ministers and deputy ministers and other functionaries since 1947. They also, in fact, have a special dispensation for the salaries paid to the chief parliamentary secretary and parliamentary secretaries. You might remember there was this whole controversy over parliamentary secretaries in Delhi, because essentially they are not ministers but are given a sort of ministerial rank within the government. And in Punjab, since 1976, all of these people, so whether it's the chief minister, the ministers, the deputy ministers, ministers of state, or even the parliamentary secretaries, all of them don't pay income tax on their salaries which they're getting from the government. That is again paid by the government, by the public exchequer. Lastly, of course, we have the state of Jammu and Kashmir, which has had this in their law since 1981. So they've had a dispensation for ministers and deputy ministers that they don't pay income tax on their salaries. All of that income tax gets paid by the government. Now, some of you might be thinking that, okay, now that Jammu and Kashmir is being converted into a union territory and the administration is changing, that will lead to change. Well, it won't, because if you look at Schedule 5 of the Jammu and Kashmir Reorganization Act, it specifies a number of acts which will continue to remain in force, and it specifically includes the laws which allow for this for ministers and for deputy ministers. So even after reorganization, that's still going to apply. Now, we know that in UP, Yogi Adityanath has now said that he's going to make sure that this gets abolished. He's already spoken to his cabinet and they're going to get cabinet approval and start the process there. But the big question is that also going to be the case for these other 5 states? Stay tuned to the Quint to find out.